Welcome back to From Middle Class to Millions. I have a couple of things that I want to talk about today, but mainly what we're going to do is we're going to continue the podcast from last week when I introduced you to Lisa. Lisa was the 53-year-old who didn't trust herself with money. Lisa's the 53-year-old who trusted her husband with the money after 20 years. And Lisa is the 53-year-old who sold a condominium in a great town and now is sitting on the money and is nervous and doesn't know what to do in terms of making the right moves for her and her family so that she does the right things by her and her family with this money. So we're going to talk about Lisa today. We're going to get right back into that. However, I do want to say a couple of words. If you are in a financial position where you can help out the folks who have had their SNAP benefits terminated, and you can donate food or clothing or whatever you may have to a food pantry, to a service that will deliver these goods to individuals who are in need, please do so. Think about that when you're at the grocery store. Think about that when you're passing your local food pantry. There's certain things that folks need. And if you can, there's a lot of information out there. If you can look and see some of the non-perishable items that you could provide, that would be very helpful and very much appreciated. So please do so. Also, please donate to the good people of the island of Jamaica. Jamaica, as you know, was hit by a Category 5 storm, Hurricane Melissa, and has devastated the island. And I do believe that if you can give anything to help the people of Jamaica, that would be very much appreciated by them as well. They are strong, they are resilient, but like all good people, we need help when things happen. And a Category 5 storm on an island like that, it has just been pure destruction. So anything that you can give, I would love for you to do so, and to keep all of these folks here in the U.S. and the people of Jamaica in your hearts and also in your wallets. All right. Before I get into the Lisa story, I do want to talk a little bit about Selling Sunset. You guys know I like reality TV. It is what I consider my guilty pleasure. I do love reality TV, especially when it combines fashion and real estate. What? That makes me thrilled, especially Selling Sunset, because I live on the East Coast, and seeing the homes on the West Coast is always fascinating to me because we just don't have homes that are built like that over here on the East Coast. So it's just fascinating to see the beauty of the homes and the expanse. However, the show started off showing us these real estate agents and them selling these marvelous homes to these extremely wealthy individuals. And now it has evolved into, if you want to call it an evolution, into a show of just complete bitterness and rumors and lies and all sorts of treachery. But I do want to focus on one particular relationship during the show. I may bring in some other folks, I'm not going to lie. But during this episode, I do want to focus on Chelsea. Now, for all of you who have watched the show, you know exactly where I'm going with this. Chelsea is the British real estate agent who joined Selling Sunset, I don't know how many seasons ago, who, for one, in order to join the group, she had to prove that she was able to sell a home before she could even be a part of the team. Now, I want to point out, no other agents were required to do that. None of the other agents were required, at least not what we saw, right? None of the other agents were required to sell a home before joining the team. So that's one. And I'm going to come back to why that's important. Now, if you watched the show this season, you saw that there was this huge kerfuffle between Chelsea and Mary. Mary, who is one of the OGs from the agency, and also the former girlfriend of one of the owners, she had her home broken into. And as a result of that, a lot of people, of course, reached out to her and was like, they were really worried about her and they felt really badly that this had happened to her. Anybody who's had a home that's been broken into, it's incredibly traumatic. It feels like a complete violation of your privacy. It is really creepy to know that somebody's been in your home and sifting through all of your stuff. It's horrible. And so many people reached out to her to say, I'm really apologetic that this happened to you, and, we're thinking about you. One of the people who reached out to her was Chelsea. Now, historically, Chelsea and Mary do not have a great relationship. Now, I don't know why that is so, because for what I've seen, the only issue that occurred between Chelsea and Mary over the years is that Mary said that Chelsea was dressed inappropriately at a broker's open. Now, I want to point out, Selling Sunset is all about boobs and legs and midriffs and, bums. Like, this is not the agency where you're seeing women in suits, okay? And they're covered up. This is not the place. Maybe because we're on TV, maybe because it's this part of California, I don't know. But believe you me, nobody dresses quote unquote appropriately for an office. This isn't a corporate law office. This isn't a corporate building. These guys are wearing high fashion and a lot of revealing outfits. But Mary took it upon herself to tell the bosses, Brett and Jason, that she thought that Chelsea was dressed inappropriately, and she didn't tell Chelsea to her face or pull her aside. She actually mentioned it in front of the bosses, which were two men. Chelsea found that to be a little offensive, also a little hypocritical since everybody dresses the same way. But, she was like, look, in the future, if you would say that to me, you say it to me personally. If you have something to say, I just don't appreciate that you said it in front of our bosses. Mary took offense to that. Okay, fine. If you ask me, that's strike two. Strike one, Chelsea had to prove herself before she even joined the group. She had to sell a home. Nobody else did. Strike two, now we're talking about what Chelsea's wearing, which isn't any different than what any of the other ladies wear on the show. Okay. Strike three. Chelsea sends flowers to Mary. And even though they don't have a great relationship, she sends these flowers to Mary and says, I'm sorry about what happened to you. This is just a gesture that I'm thinking of you, and I hope everything for you works out well. Blah, 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 blah. I'm paraphrasing. Mary loses her mind. Totally loses her mind, thinks that, Chelsea only sent these because she, the cameras were there and she wanted to get camera time. And then when Chelsea went to another event, Mary went to another event, she saw Chelsea's name and she said, oh my gosh, Chelsea is, I'm frightened because Chelsea's dangerous. All right. See, there you have it. There you have it. Newsflash, Chelsea's black. Okay. And suddenly now, Mary finds her dangerous. Chelsea's the aggressor. Chelsea is only doing things to get airtime. Chelsea is inappropriately dressed, all at the broker's open. And even to start, she has to prove herself to even be a member of the team, although nobody else has to do that. So what does Chelsea do? Chelsea calls them out for their, I love that people say microaggressions, but macroaggressions against her, and she calls them racist. And what happens? That gets cut out of the scene of Selling Sunset. Now, I've since heard that Chelsea is no longer on Selling Sunset. That has not been confirmed. I heard that she's been fired or let go or whatever terminology they're using. She's not going to be on the show next season. So what that means to me is that's the end of Selling Sunset for me. I like to look at my beautiful homes on the West Coast. I love the transactions and the whole real estate genre, but I'm not about it because I'm not going to stand by and listen to how Chelsea is being treated and why nobody, Amanda, nobody, Jason and Brett, nobody, any of the other girls are going to say anything about it. Okay? I'm not going to stand by, and I'm not going to watch because I'm not going to support it. And that's my prerogative. And I feel as though when these shows are casted, and I got to tell you, when there's one person of color who is, I guess, the only one on the show, bless their hearts, because they are an island on their own. Okay. And so Chelsea has been nothing but stellar in terms of her acumen, in terms of her ability to sell homes, in terms of her class, in terms of the abuse that she's been receiving, and has not at all in any way, shape, or form done anything to deserve it, and has only responded appropriately. Even though Mary said she was dressed inappropriately, I think the mere fact that she responded appropriately was enough for Mary to get Jason, her ex-boyfriend and co-owner of the Oppenheim Group, to get Mary fired. It is egregious. And what I think is so fascinating about it is that everybody has seen this. There is no question in anybody's mind what Mary has done, how Mary has behaved, and the outright racism displayed and shown to Chelsea. Not at all. I mean, I if you can't see it, you're not trying to see it. And that's the truth. Anyway, so like I said, you guys can go watch it. You can go watch the reunion, which was trash. You can go watch the rest of the show. And if it comes back next season, I won't have anything to say about it because I'm not going to be watching it if my girl Chelsea is not on it. My British friend Chelsea, if she's not on it, I'm not watching it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about my girl, Lisa. Now, last week when we talked about her, like I said, we went through all of the iterations of what had brought Lisa to this place. This place now at 53, where she was like, I want to make the right decisions and I'm paralyzed. I just don't want to do anything that's going to mess up the situation for me or my kids or, my future. It needs to make sense. And I get it. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? The things that you have to do in these situations is you actually have to make a move, right? You have to step out and do the thing. And I find that what's really interesting about people like Lisa, you may be 53, you may be 43, 33, 63, whatever the age, people like Lisa are looking for somebody who can help them through these types of decisions so that they don't feel as though they're going to mess up, right? This is not something that somebody goes to a financial advisor for, because what happens is they don't have the financial literacy. They don't feel more comfortable. They just feel like they've transferred this money off to somebody and they cross their fingers and hope for the best. And they're still not sleeping well at night because they don't know what's going on. And that person really isn't talking to them. That person isn't listening to them. That person doesn't understand what it is that the Lisas of the world needs. That person is selling them equities and all sorts of things that they're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll do that. But that doesn't make them feel any more confident or any more secure. So first and foremost, Lisa and I had to get really clear and do the first step, which was to get organized. I mean, listen, when Lisa came to me, she needed 3 things. And if you're in a similar situation, you probably need these same 3 things. The first one, like I said, was getting organized, because before you can do anything else, we have to know what we're working with. And I mean, really know. This is the part where people don't want to look because it's messy. And, you're thinking, I don't want to get everything together. But there are a lot of really smart, successful high earning women who are in this situation that Lisa's in. Because a lot of these women are making the money, but they're not managing it. And those are two completely different skills. Two completely different skills. And like I say all the time, we're taught to go out there and make the money, right? Go get the education, go get the job, and bring in that money. And when you've been outsourcing the management of the money for the years, the thought of taking that on, taking on one more thing, feels completely overwhelming. But it's a good thing if you feel uneasy about this, because it means you're ready. I mean, it means that your body is telling you it's time to wake up and pay attention. You can't keep doing this for much longer. You just can't. So what did organization mean? It means that we had to get all the accounts together. You know, all those 401ks that you have from old jobs. You know where they are, what they're worth, what they're invested in. Like, she didn't even know where this stuff was. So we had to round up all of that stuff. We had to get checking accounts, savings accounts. We had to whittle those down. You don't need so many. And we need to know what's in them and what they're for. We had to look at the credit cards. We had to look at the loans. We had to look at the debt. We had to look at everything. Everything. We had to get all the accounts together. Then we had to do a complete financial inventory. So truly, what is coming in every month? And I know a lot of people have a kind of vague idea what it is, but I wanted the exact numbers. I wanted to know what was coming in. I wanted to know what was going out. And I wanted to know where that money was going. Because I wanted her to be very clear on where the money was being spent. It's not a time for judgment. It's just time to look. Let's lay it out. Let's just see what's going on here. I wasn't sitting there waiting for her to say, that's a good place. I shouldn't be spending on this. I should be spending on that. No, we just needed to see what was going on, the movement and the flow of the cash. And for someone like Lisa, who had a 1099 income, this is even more critical because she didn't have a predictable paycheck, right? This isn't someone with a W-2 where every 2 weeks or the 15th and the 30th, this is what we expect to see. No, that wasn't the case with Lisa. So we really had to look at, all right, honestly, what is coming in and where is it going? And be very clear about it. And we had to get clear on those expenses. And I didn't want, okay, where do you think you're spending? What do you think you spend on something? No. Actual numbers, actual spending, because I have yet to have a client who thinks they're spending something and they're not spending more than they think. I mean, I welcome you if you're the one who's going to prove me wrong, but every single one of us thinks we're spending X and we're really spending Y, and that delta is bigger every single time. Now, this is the part that most of these folks coming in to work with me don't know, and I want them to know. And it can be a little disheartening when you first get this number, but I think it's really important for us to figure it out. I want you to figure out your current net worth. And that sounds like, what does that mean? All it means is we're going to add up all of your assets, and then we're going to subtract all of your liabilities. And that's going to give us your actual financial score. And most people never calculate this, but this is the number that is very critical for you to have. And I'll get into why it's so important to get that number as well. So there are a couple of things that we're pulling together in this organizational stage that are important. And I want you to really understand why I want you to go through this exercise and why it was important for Lisa. Because when you start to get it organized, the anxiety starts to lift. Okay? And it's not because, It's all perfect. It's all clear. It all makes sense. No, not because of that at all. But it's because you're no longer thinking about the unknown, right? You're actually dealing with reality. And even though the reality may be pretty shitty, it's still less scary than the unknown. So what happens is people think that, and Lisa thought this as well, if I start to get organized, I'm going to feel worse. Because I'm going to feel worse because I'm going to start looking at the numbers, and the numbers are going to tell me everything that I feared, that everything's a mess, that I've messed up, and I've messed up for years. But what most people don't realize is that when you get organized and you look at those numbers, you have something that you've never had before. And it's clarity. And in order to be in control, you got to be clear. And when you're dealing with those unknown floating around, I don't know where things are, and I got piles of this, and I don't know the exact numbers, there's no clarity and there's no control because it's a mess. It's a mess in your head. It's a mess out there, and you can't be in control when things are just unknown and messy. So it's the clarity that you get from the organization that sets you up. And that's the first step. That is the first step. The second step, once you have all these numbers, once you have you have an idea of where everything is, then we got to stabilize it. Then we got to stop the bleeding, okay? By stabilizing what we have going on, we're going to create actual security. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. This stabilization phase is not sexy. It's not sexy, but it does create peace of mind. Okay. This is when people start to sleep well at night. Okay. Because you know you're going to be okay. So for Lisa, for example, stabilizing meant building a real emergency fund. Not 2 months, not whatever's left over, but an actual safety net that accounts for the reality of today's job market. Okay? I've had clients come to me and they've been out of work for 6 months or 8 months. And for somebody like Lisa, who'd been laid off multiple times and is currently a 1099 contractor with 0 benefits, this is not negotiable. We need a real emergency fund, not something that's like a wing and a prayer. Secondly, we needed a strategic debt payoff strategy. All right? Not all debt is created equally. I don't believe that everything needs to be paid off, right? Before you do anything else, before you invest. Because although, yeah, you're debt free, it's not the smartest financial move. So we're going to pay off the debt that's costing you the most money. And we're going to do it in a way that doesn't trash all your opportunities. There's been a loud voice saying you got to pay off everything before you might invest. And I would say that doesn't make any sense. You're wasting time, you're losing time, and you're losing opportunities. So we have to be strategic about it. And that's why when we laid it out in the first step, when we were organizing everything, we will have a sense of, okay, what are we going to pay off first and by when? Because the date matters. Nobody wants to think they're going to have this hanging around forever. The date matters. Now, because Lisa has kids, just 2 kids, we needed a college funding strategy. And I know some of you come to me and you have little kids, and that's great. You're starting early. Lisa's a 9th grader and she already has a kid in college. So she needs the sale of that money from that condo to make sense and work for both of them. However, what I really spent time talking to Lisa about is that money that you're going to use for them is great, but it can't be at the expense of her retirement. Because no matter what, no matter whether you want to or not, your kids can take out a loan for school. You cannot take out a loan for retirement. I want to say that again. Your kids can take out a loan for school. You cannot take out a loan for retirement. So we need to be strategic when it comes to the college funding with the money that she had from the proceeds of the sale. Because those kids, those youngins who are going to graduate at 22, have time to pay off any loans that they incur, but you cannot get a loan for retirement. The other thing that is often ignored a lot by folks who have W-2s, and good for them because these are embedded in having a W-2 position, is when you're a 1099 contractor, there are gaps in your benefits. Okay. You don't have an employer that's providing health insurance and life insurance and disability insurance. You don't have somebody doing all of that for you. So you have to do that yourself. And so I thought it was incredibly important to stress this to Lisa so that she understood that this is part of this stabilization phase. We want to get this foundation. We want it to be secure. And in order to do that, we had to fill in these benefit gaps. And then the part that most people overlook is the stage where we're creating systems. Because it's simply not enough to make this one-time decision and then you're out of there. You need systems. You need systems so that managing money isn't something that is a daily source of anxiety, that you always have to look at your bank account, that you always got to look at your investments account. You always got to look at what's going on. No, I want you out there living your life. You want to be out there living your life. You don't want to be this anxiety-ridden person who has to constantly check the dollar amount and the balance in their accounts. No, put some stuff on auto pay. Automate those transfers. Make tracking simple. You want systems that work when you're busy, systems that work when someone's ill, systems that work when life gets chaotic. You want the systems in place that work regardless. This is the time when the emotion comes out and you have those systems set up so that you can be on cruise control, particularly when you're having a great life, living your life, enjoying yourself, or God forbid, something is going on that's a little crazy and you got to turn your attention to that thing. Once you get these things set up in stage 2, you'll start sleeping better. Trust me. How do I know that? My clients say it all the time. The big sigh at the end of the call, the relief that they feel, the conversations that they're now having with each other if they have a spouse. That's it. That's all. That's what they want. That's the goal. They're not trying to become financial experts. They don't care if they're talking about money all the time. Listen, I like it. They don't care to. They don't need to obsess over every dollar, and nor do they want to. They just want to sleep better at night. They just want to know that they're on solid ground. They want to know that the things that are important to them and that they value are being taken care of. That's it. That's all. It's not that complicated. And I realized that with Lisa. Because these steps seemed really overwhelming to her in the beginning. But by the time she got to this phase, stabilization phase, well, she just felt better. Now, I want to be clear. That's not the end. I mean, that feels good when you've organized everything and now everything is stabilized and you have a real plan in place to make sure that the foundation is solid. That does feel good. Don't get me wrong. However, we are not here just for the good feels. We're here to build wealth. That's the goal. We're here to build wealth. We're here to build a solid cushion. so that we can go to the next phase in life. And I know that's what Lisa wants. And I know that's what many of you want. So I want you to come back here next week, because next week I'm going to talk about the next stage, the growth stage, where you're building real wealth. This is the good stuff, honestly. This is where it really starts to feel great, because you've got things in place. You've got the clarity. All right. You're now on solid footing. Now it's like, oh, where do I go from here? And that's what we're going to talk about in next week's episode. So again, if you know that you're like Lisa and you're somewhere in between phase 1 and phase 2, that's fine. There's no problem with that. You can book a call right now. You can get on the phone with me right now. You don't have to be at Legacy. Nobody's saying you can come talk to me. Legacy, how are you going to get to Legacy if, your stuff's all over the place and it's disorganized and you don't know how to get a solid foundation? That's where I come in, where I hold your hand and I walk you through it and we talk about it. And I know you're embarrassed. And I know you feel that you should already have this under control. And I know that you're smart. And I know that it's overwhelming. But I also know it's okay to ask for help. I know it's also okay to get help. And I also know that I was once where you were, as many of my clients are and were. So there's no reason to put it off. There's no reason to wait. Book a call with me and let's get on the phone and get started. Because every day that you're awake at night worrying about this is one day that you're not out enjoying your life. And I don't want that for you. All right. Thanks for listening. Please share this. I would love it if you would leave a comment and rate this podcast wherever you're listening to this podcast, on whatever podcast player, and share it. Because there's a lot of folks out there like you who are high earners, first generation high earners, first generation Americans, first generation college students, and you are making money and you're not able to figure out who to turn to and how to make it grow. And there's no reason you should struggle at all with this. All right. Can't wait to hear from you. Book a call and let's get started. See you next week.